startups, PR, and content creation. So let's get started. My name is Michael Grantham. I'm your moderator for today, and I am a part of Pirate Pixel Game Studio. We're a startup game studio, and we'll get into more of like what all we've gone through. It's been quite the learning process. So yeah, so I will hand it off here to our next.
Hi, I'm Becca Jones. I am a marketing professor here at CSU. I've been here since 2019 after moving from Memphis. My specialties are in sales. So I teach kind of the psychology behind selling a product, whether that be a physical good or a service, which video games kind of lie a little bit in between, because you have the tangible, like actual, like physical thing. But when you're actually playing that experience, that service is something that is a big thing you have to focus on whenever you're trying to sell content that you've created. I'm also my background's in consumer behavior and kind of how psychology of human beings can be impacted by manipulating certain things. So maybe, and that sounds like a bad word. It's not all bad. But a lot of it has to do with like using the right color to evoke the right emotion. So like when you're designing a video game or something like that, you need to be aware of those kind of psychological things that are underlying in almost all human beings. So
I'm Michael Brown. I'm the CEO of Vicarious PR. Vicarious is a full-service marketing agency that's international. We've done everything from AAA games to solo indie devs operating out of the garage and kind of the wide range in between. We've generated about $6.5 billion in revenue for games over the past 5 years. And yeah, that's pretty much what we do.
I'm Tiger Lily. I was the keynote earlier, and what I do on a daily basis is I help market games as an influencer. So there's different variations for me. For Ants Online, Atlanta Network Technologies, where we try to market bigger games that come out. But then I also, as an influencer and creator on the side, I join creator programs for like Amazon Game Studio, or for example, Blizzard has Diablo in their partner program.
I'm Alex Kingsley. I'm the co-founder with Michael of Firepixel Game Studio and an alumni of CSU. And we are a brand new company trying to make our way in the game industry and figuring out how to both build a business and build a game at the same time.
So thank you for the introductions, everybody. So what I had a couple of ideas for some topics. One of the things is sort of like for startups or like people starting out, trying to be entrepreneurs or trying to make their own business. So one of the things that we've learned is when it's just us two, or like it's just you starting out, you have to be a jack of all trades. And one of the things that we learned is to expect the unexpected. And so, like for instance, we're trying to like get the business side of it done. I mean, we want to make the games, but also making a business is completely different. It's foreign to me. Like I didn't take like a minor in business or anything like that. So learning all of that has been quite fun. We'll say it's been fun. With that sort of topic, being a jack of all trades, like, is that something that you guys agree with? Like, I guess that's something that I would I'll pose that to the panel. So.
I think that's anything new in life. Luckily, we
Oh,
have the internet these days, so you can find most answers to things and kind of how that works. But I would say that definitely, at least from the business side of it, I would definitely find what your value is in how you're going to set yourself apart from everybody else. And whether that's you including influencers and stuff like that in your content creation and your kind of the way in which you're selling yourself, I think finding a unique kind of niche is the key to actually becoming successful and becoming profitable. And then you look at that value creation point and you kind of build your company around that. Um,
Yeah, I think one of the most frustrating parts of my job is dealing with developers who are incredibly creative but have no business sense whatsoever. And them coming to me 2 weeks before launch saying, please help me sell my game. And I'm like, it's too late. You've got 2 weeks before you launch. Um, I think developers really need, especially indie devs, need to start from scratch and really work on their business plans and marketing plans from the get-go. Like, there's so many times where I see really good games fail because there just wasn't enough marketing done, and the branding wasn't done from the start, or even that they developed a game without any kind of marketing or commercial mindset, where they would make decisions that, it's great for them in their house, but for 250,000 players, not so great. And so I think one of the things that developers have to realize, especially when you're doing your first game or your first company, is to really plan and think about those things from the start before before you're 2 years into coding and everything like that, is to figure out like how you're going to get this to market, what your branding is going to be, how are you going to create an audience not only for your game but for your company, because there's so many developers who have a successful game and then they release a second game and nobody buys it, and people will go, well, I made that game, but they don't know, there's no brandability to the company, so they don't translate that audience into followers of the company. And there's very few companies that have successfully done that even today. So if more developers figured out we need to pay attention to more than just the code at the start, you would probably have higher average sales and more successes all around.
Coming from a streamer's point of view, it's almost like marketing a video game. You just want to think of your branding, how you'll market yourself to a gaming company. So an example is, I only like RPG games, and so I'm only going to brand myself out to RPG games that just really fit my vibe and like the vibe of my community, because I already know what they like, so I'm going to provide that to them, right? I also manage 2 other influencers and streamers. One is a professional Valorant player, and the other one dabbles in Battle Royale content creation. So when I'm presented with how would you like to market our game, for example, when it comes to the table, be like, well, I have a Battle Royale specialist that can really like highlight this and show his passions in it, so he'll get it. I wouldn't give that to myself, right? And another would be a first-person shooter. She is very good at Valorant. I'm not very good at Valorant, but she'll appeal to first-person shooter audiences. So we're just starting, so it's a great question, because I'm like trying to figure out how I and my team can market video games. Right now we're practicing with like AAA titles, but it'd be nice to like start to reach out, and that's my goal with Ants Online, is actually to start getting more involved with the indie community and highlighting that in the Atlanta area. So
I would say one thing that I found is just constant research. Every single week now I am researching something and learning how to manage a different side of a business that I've never thought of before. But then along with that, having your hand in all these different places, also realizing the strengths of the people around you, and finding other people that have these strengths that you don't have, so that you don't have to wear yourself out figuring out how to do everything by yourself. Just try to use the help of others to make it easier on yourself.
I also want to point out too how important networking is. I would say that, like, I go to the esports Peach Belt conference, and I talk to high schoolers, and I say, hey, that's part of this my sales pitch to their parents, and them is we have scholarships for this at CSU. We have game development within our programs at CSU. And so just even that, I mean, it's in South Carolina. I've been a couple times, and even just something like that, I've met so many, gamers and people that have specialties in certain esports games, as well as just meeting the high schoolers and seeing what they like, because they're the next generation of, they're going to be developing things. And so when you said research, I was thinking, that was something that I asked them. I say, why do you like this game? So just kind of networking and asking questions is a big part of it too, I think.
Thank you guys for that. Yeah, so one of the things was like to expect the unexpected and doing the research and that sort of thing. I knew what Alex was going to say pretty much. So, but yeah, like we the other day we sort of I guess another thing is you might have something planned out for your timeline or your production or something like that, and then have to be able to pivot to something completely different because you didn't see something coming down the road that you need to take care of. So yeah, we've had to do that a couple of times recently, and it's worked pretty good because we plan for that. We plan to expect the unexpected. So being able to pivot like that. One of the other things that I had on here was what Michael had touched on. The You said it's like do it the right way. Like when you first get going, like start your brand and do it correctly and lay the foundation for the business side of it, even though it's not not the most fun thing to do. You're going to learn something, and it's going to help you going forward. So let's see. So one of the other things was this is sort of like in regards to PR, public relations, and all that. So getting involved with your community, and one of the things that we've seen so far is the gaming community, like here in Columbus and in Georgia, is vast. Like there's a lot of people who want to get into making video games. So one of the things was the topic is like, don't be afraid to ask for help and to seek out help and to seek out people that are in the same mindset as you. So I'll just sort of these are just topics. I'll put that out there if anybody wants to um, discuss that. I'll leave it to you guys. Oh.
Um, yeah, I think with any kind of PR outreach, you've got to have a plan from the start on because there's going to be different phases, right? Because your core consumer audience, which is your player base, you can start reaching out to those guys earlier than you can for, say, media and influencers, and you have to plan a strategy around how you're going to talk to each of those because like an influencer is going to look for different things than a member of the press, and they're going to be a different audience to your main player base, and so you have to craft messaging for each, and you have to think about like what phases, when is my game ready to show, when do I want to invite people to play it, when do I want articles written about it, when do I want influencers to stream it, because obviously if you go too soon, then you might ruin your one shot at getting a particular group of influencers to play that title or come back to it. So thinking about those things from the start is really important because, I mean, really thinking about the majority of your marketing strategy from the start will help you and can inform your game development as a whole as well. Like you might think of something by doing that you wouldn't have otherwise thought of. For example, like there was a game that we're working on right now. That's perfect for Twitch integration, and being able to have Twitch audiences and influencers play together in that aspect. And the developers hadn't thought about it, but because they started having their marketing talks early enough, there was development time to be able to implement that into the project scope, which will inevitably lead to a massive benefit for them.
I would say take every opportunity that arises. You never know what's going to come out of it. A while back, Michael and I were on a Xbox game camp, and we got to meet a lot of cool people. And it was a very fun time, and we didn't know what would come out of it. A business ended up coming out of it. But also, even after then, since we've met people like Ken Lobb, he's actually taken time out of his busy schedule to help us with the game that we're working on right now. So no matter how big or how small an event is or any opportunity, you never know what's going to come out of it. And you might meet somebody even today and not talk to them for years, but then all of a sudden you need their niche, and then you can look them up and reconnect with them. Networking.
I think too, part of like just to kind of play off of what you said, not just starting out at the very beginning with trying to rush things, but knowing who your target market is huge. What they like, what they're, obviously you kind of probably can predict some of their hobbies and that kind of thing. But just knowing if they're going to be someone that's also going to be a repeat customer, whether they're going to play your other games. So a big thing with that is, you have your institutional branding and then you have your product branding. So making sure that your company name, like you talked about earlier, they may not, they may play one game but not know who your company is. And so when your company actually produces another game, they may not relate it to that. So making sure that you do have that concrete institutional branding. We talk about Apple all the time, right? And they oftentimes will, put out an ad that just says, hey, we're Apple, and this is what we stand for. And they don't really talk about what products they have, but we know that company because they branded themselves so well as a company, but so that we know now what their products are. So I think that plays off of what you were saying as far as like if you're going to actually develop more games in the future.
Thank you guys for that. So one of the things I was thinking about while you guys were talking, while I was listening, was like gaining the trust of your audience, or gaining the trust of your customers, because like one of the things with like gamers in particular is like they're very loyal. So I was gonna prickly too. So I was gonna say that like you were talking about like institutional branding. They're gonna tie any product that you put out to your brand, and it could come back in the future. If you put something out that's subpar, it's going to like and we've seen that with some AAA game studios, and run into some issues where it does sort of poison the well a little bit. So it takes a lot of time and community outreach and a lot of work to get back that trust that you have. So right, yes, yeah. The other thing, one of the things that I think this is one of the last questions I'll pose, and then I'll open it up to the audience here, was content creation. That's like the third pillar of this. And Tiger Lily, I'll probably direct it towards you a bit more. So when it comes to content creation, it's always, for me, a struggle to, well, not a struggle, but like it's always been a challenge to make sure having fresh ideas and ideas that no one's done before, or doing them in a different way. So I'm just curious as to how everybody handles inspiration for content creation, or being inspired to. I think that's that. Yeah. So how do you handle it?
How do you handle being unique and inspiring and fun as a creator when everybody else is already doing it? So it's like, Twitch is saturated. I'm a cosplayer. There's tons of other cosplayers. What makes me more special than the other cosplayers is I love video game development. I'm very in tune with the game community and like what they're doing. So when someone comes in, they're like, oh, you're building a cosplay. That's unique. That's fun. What are you building it from? Well, I'm building this spear from an upcoming game that's coming out. Do you want to hear about it? And they're like, sure. So while my hands are busy and they have something to watch, I actually get the chance. And so that's where marketing kind of slips in, being like, when you're doing that, make sure to mention this and make sure to mention that. And that's where they find my superpower. And it seems really organic, and it doesn't seem like, I'm forcing it to the viewers. They have something fun to watch, and they can walk away from the stream and come back to the stream and still be like, oh, you're almost done with this spear, so cool. And this is the first time I heard about that game, and now I'm curious. And then as an influencer, I should have a source to that somewhere, either on the channel, in chat, in my about section, so that way the curious individuals will find out how to get there, and sometimes people don't want to ask. They don't want to seem like they bought it. They don't want that at all. They just want to be like, I'm going to be sneaky about it and I'll find it. And it's like, if you pay attention to those clicks, they happen. And so that's what I do. If it's in a contract where I'm supposed to announce, my sponsors, or let's talk about this game, I'll make sure to put it in there. And it almost feels like a handshake with the viewer, being like, oh, you really like this spear? Well, let me tell you about the game that it's from. And so that's how I try to just like bring a light to something without it being like sellout-ish. That's like the worst word. We don't like to hear that at all as influencers, because our viewers are like, oh, they're trying to sell something to me, and I hate that. And so we just try to make the experience more fun and more organic to the viewer. Yeah. And viewers will trust me, because I've been doing it for like 3 years now. They'll trust me not to be like, I'm going to survive. I can't survive if you don't click this link. I can't, it's just like really, to me, it's annoying as a viewer, and I'm sure it is to the viewers themselves. So. Yeah.
I think the statistics are it costs about 80% more to gain a new customer versus to be able to keep a customer, because you've built that trust. So having that repeat customer is huge. And a way that you develop trust is you I kind of go back to cohesiveness again. Like, they know what to expect. And kind of to build off of that and kind of how to find your content. So I do something in my sales class where you have to develop a new product. And that kind of scary to people. But I tell them, I'm like, just think about a problem you have in your life. And in video games, it could be like, what would you, like, in an ideal world, what would your favorite game look like? And so I tell them, what's a problem, or what's just something you wish you could do but you can't because there's nothing to help you do it. And I think that a lot of times that's how the imagination, the content creation, or just thinking about ideal worlds or ideal games, and that kind of, you can build off of that. And I think a lot of I don't know if you'd call them consumers, but a lot of your followers would then kind of provide some more information on what you're doing and kind of be able to build on that too. So I think that's huge.
To tack onto that, so working for a tech company, I'll be playing games and someone will come in being like, my new PlayStation 5 is full. I can't download any new games. Don't sell me any new games. I'm like, yeah, well, did you check on it online? We've got a solid state drive on sale. Like, you can solve your problem right now, or just whine. And like, I'll say that. So like I wait for the opportune moment. I'm not trying to it just sounds weird when you're like, oh, headshot. Oh, but did you buy the new PlayStation 5? Like, it's weird. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Flipping it in there.
Yeah. Just like perfectly. So cool.
Thank you guys. I appreciate that. I was going to say, as far as inspiration for games, specifically, it's kind of difficult. Like, if you get to a point where you're trying to do something unique with the game design or something like that, you try to consume creative art. I think that's the best way to do it, is just to play as many games as you can, read books, watch movies. You'll never know where inspiration comes from. Music, yes. So that's like filling the well, it fills you back up, and being inspired by other people's creative works. So I get really philosophical with games sometimes. So, but I will open up the floor to any questions. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, yes.
Hi. Okay, yep, get the tentacles in frame. Hi. So, I am Karen. I made a game called Urchins in Ink. It is a 2D twin shooter that teaches Japanese, and it's kind of niche. So, I feel like it has, it's very applicable to a lot of different areas, but it's kind of difficult for me to market it better. I'm more of a developer. I'm a designer. I've thought about all the different ways that it could be a sellable product, but I'm not good at marketing and social media and stuff like that. How can I better present my project, myself, my content to companies to where they're more apt to helping me do those things in a way that doesn't end up sacrificing crazy stuff that's going on with my game, trying to make it less niche or do all these other things. I'm flexible, but I think it works.
So I'm not 100% familiar with how all of the this works, all of this stuff. Sorry, but as far as like selling it to a company, I guess is what you're asking. Selling your game. Okay, yeah, okay. So, and you were asking about social media. So, you have followers, you have a social media presence. Um, Oh, well, I mean, that's okay. I mean, you can hire people to do that. I mean, you can honestly follow those people that are good at it and see what they do. See if you can get some ideas from them. I would highly recommend looking at Google Analytics and plugging in your socials to that, because then you can see where your followers are actually coming from and you can target them more on those spaces versus maybe you're reaching out to the wrong places. And Google Analytics or something like that will help you track where your followers are actually coming from, where they're clicking from, if they're actually converting and following you, or just coming and looking at your page. And it's free. You just set it up with all your social medias, and there's like a free class on it too. So I would highly recommend looking at Google Analytics. I mean, I don't know. Again, that might be totally wrong, but that's what I usually recommend to companies.
Yeah, well, as the owner of an agency and someone you would look to hire to help you, um, there's a couple of things. So, like, the problem is with games in particular, and most gaming agencies, is that most gaming agencies won't take on something that is too niche because they are not, or maybe not confident in being able to produce results for it, right? So, what I would do to be able to make it, if you really do need help and you're like, I need someone with expertise, what I would do is set out what success looks like for you, so that you can communicate that to the agency and be like, okay, I'm not looking for 1 million sales. I'm looking for 12, 15K, and this is my budget, and this is what I want to achieve. That will make it a little bit better, so that the agency can have a framework to go off, and then come up with a plan. Then you've also got to think about like what your budget is and how much you want to spend on that, because, like, don't get me wrong, and I'm obviously biased, but marketing agencies are great, but also they are expensive, right? And so the results have to justify the spend. And so it might actually be worth maybe getting a freelancer or someone who's looking to gain more experience as an entry level marketer, and being like, hey, you can come and work on my project. I'll pay you not what you would pay an agency, but a decent thing. And then you have someone who's worked on it, who understands the theory, might not have as much experience, but still could produce results without you having to justify tens of thousands of dollars worth of spend. And then also you can easy things to do that you could do yourself is stuff like try and find a couple of influencers that are really interested in either the niche or the genre or what the project's trying to do, and then outreach to them, start a conversation with them by email. Some influencers don't like that. And go in the chat, or jump in, Twitter DMs and stuff like that. But yeah, that's what I would recommend, because not all games fit like a really expensive campaign, and there's no justification for it. So you've got to kind of figure out what success looks like and what your milestones are, and then you can build a framework after that.
To learn a language. Okay, so that could even be kind of academic based.
Yeah.
Like the broad scope of it, like kind of similar to like Duolingo, but it's more game focused. And I have interest in putting it into schools and stuff like that. But my expertise isn't going through schools. My expertise is game development. So I'm going the game route and seeing if I can eventually figure that out.
So I understand your game. I've loved it every time I've seen it at SeasCon. I got to play. I love Japanese, so I thought it was the cutest thing ever. I was like, let's learn Japanese. So like I understand it, but my suggestion maybe for you, like maybe you don't have the budget and you don't have the time, but you're just like, exposure would be really good for you. Is an influencer. Or maybe like, hi, Tiger Lily, how much would it be to like maybe have you and Ants Online play my game on a day, and then like we can try our best to get exposure for you on that day. And you'd be like, this is the social media I want you to push for me. Like I really want to get more attention on my Instagram today, like, and then we'll try our best to help push that for you. Like that would be something that you could look into, and you could always reach out to companies that are like streaming games. A great example of a successful company that does that is Xbox Indie. They just started theirs, and I love it, and I'm trying to cultivate and make that myself. And so that's like something that I'm trying to look forward to. So if you can get a feel of someone that's as passionate as you, or is like has the same interests and wants to help expose indie games, that like you'd want to get in there as fast as you can and stuff. So that would be my suggestion, is like trying to find a way, the simplest way for you to get that exposure that isn't getting an agency or a marketing team to help you on that. So
I don't really have anything to add, because that's something that we're struggling with right now also. It kind of so I mean, this was informative for me. Thank you for asking. Yeah, that's about all.
Well, I did have a quick question, because I know I said I'd put it up to the audience, but so I hear like payments and that sort of thing, and it's like, oh, this cash flow and all that, and your budget. As far as like the startup portion, how do you get that money first? I guess that's sort of like like financiers or investors or anything like that. So that's my question. I is that the question though? So I know you mentioned ID at Xbox, and Xbox is really like they want to support indie game developers, and there's different avenues that they have for that. So getting a publisher that can put money behind it is one of those avenues. But yeah, but that's, I mean, self-publishing is also another thing you can do. But yeah, so that was my question. It was not really a question. It was like a rhetorical question, I guess. Does anybody have any other questions? Oh, Caleb.
Sure. So we have a lot of people here who have engaged with audiences in much different ways. Like we have someone experiences with sales, marketing, streaming, and just trying to network and get it out there as a small business. What do y'all think is some really efficient or maybe even underrated strategies for going about getting it out there for your specific field?
Well, I'll start. Just getting out there, taking chances, like taking any opportunity that you would think would any chance at all that you might meet awesome people, and who knows what'll happen. So that's my answer.
Kind of goes back on what was said earlier, but like just doing it right from the beginning. Right now, Michael and I, as a company, don't have a game that we can show yet. It's still under wraps, but we're still trying to push a logo and social media and everything right now, so that we can hopefully build that ahead of time and not end up tripping at the finish line.
Know what you want first. Like, what is your goal? If your goal is to, hi, I would like to get partnered with Corsair, that's a goal. That's a really clear goal. So my suggestion, don't go running towards them and don't tell them I sent you. But community managers are very important because they have those relationships. They know the right person for you to talk about, or they might direct you down the right lane that you're like, hey, I would really like to do this. And if you have a set goal, that's tangible and like really easy to help, and you have great relationships with community managers, they'll help you. You don't want to be that person that's like asking for freebies. You just want to be like, can I pick your brain? Or I am really interested in joining this community. How can I participate more? And that's like the best way, just to open that door. I have run into a lot of closed doors, but that's okay. Just don't stop. Just keep going. And you know, when you get an open door, you want to take care of that. You want to take care of that relationship, and you want to build that trust, and you don't want to squander it and stuff. So if you have a set goal and you know what it is, you just need to find the right person, and then they help you down the avenue.
The best advice I think I've ever given to a game developer is don't make a good game, make a commercially good game. And what I mean by that is don't come up with when you're concepting out your title that you want to make, don't just be like, hey, gonna make a 2D platformer because I like them, right? Look at the marketplace and go, what are people buying? Like what are people in demand? Where's the gaps? What's something successful that I can take and then put my own unique, and that's where you put the creative part, right? You put the creative part in making the spin and making it fun and making it different, right? Like there's too many developers now that go out and being like, I made a game so it should be successful, right? But they're not looking at like what are, let's say you're making a PC game, what are the people on PC actually buying consistently, that's selling consistently? Like, what's the genre? What's the quality of your game, right? Because everything after that point, it all starts with the game. The game has to be good. The genre has to be good. It has to have some unique selling point. And then you can take it to the next stage of like marketing and reaching out to influencers and getting press involved and doing community events and all that kind of thing. But I think there's not enough time spent on the foundational, like, why would people want to play this game, right? Because it's no good looking at a game that sold well 10 years ago and going, well, I'm going to make a game like that, so therefore that's what I should sell, right? Like, I get so many pitches of developers being like, fund my game because Stardew Valley was successful one time, and I'm going to be successful like Stardew Valley. And it's like, well, why wouldn't I just play Stardew Valley? Like, so what, right? And there's so many. And so, like, being able to be like, well, it's Stardew Valley, but it's also this, and this, and there's this unique thing, and this is like an art style that people never seen before in this genre, and this music is, original, and there's this unique mechanic where the cows all fly, and, whatever, right? But it all comes from that, right? There has to be something that's unique and core about the game that makes it marketable and fun and high quality and fun to play. And then that's the springboard for everything else, because there's so many people who miss that first step.
And to build off of that, kind of like what we were taught when I was doing my PhD was take an Excel spreadsheet and take things that are like successful, like for instance, like games that are successful, and list all the things that you like about each one of these. And then you can kind of find where there's gaps. So if you have all of the things that you like or the things that are unique to games, and then you maybe combine, if it's anything like research, when you're looking for a topic to, delve into and conduct studies on, you're looking for where's the gap. And like you said, there's got to be something that's missing. And kind of going back to just, that creative piece, like, what can I add to it? And it doesn't have to be something crazy extravagant, as long as it's something unique and new, and it's what works. Because like you said, with financing and stuff like that, and with your target market, you got to be able to justify like that it's going to sell. Because why put all of this time, this effort, and everything into it if you're trying to target a market that's really not existent anymore, because they're interested in something else? Whereas 10 years ago, they may have been interested in it, but nowadays they're not. So definitely do your research. Anytime I'm creating a business plan or a marketing plan for a company, I say, start from the ground up, and kind of to build off of, I think, your comment with the community. You're not just in the gaming community. Y'all are CSU graduates. I'm a CSU graduate, and which is kind of how I got back here after I left to do my PhD. But I have small startup companies come into my class all the time and say, what do you like about this brand? What do you like about this logo? what do you think I could do that might make it a little more, sellable? And then you have a whole group of people probably in the age group and potentially in the same interests as the games you're creating to kind of just give you that feedback. I mean, I have a couple of people, so there's a clue there. Come on into class and reach out to not just the community of what the video games are involved in, but also your resources. I don't know if y'all looked into Startup Columbus. I go to their networking events all the time, and just I've met people that I've 20 years, well, not 20 years, I'm not that old, but 5 years later thought about something I needed that they were specialized in, and I went back to them on LinkedIn and I said, hey, I remember talking to you at this startup, event, and I really didn't need this kind of advice then, but I do now because I'm in this very different place in my life.
All right. So how are we doing on time? I know, Andrew, you've been wanting to ask a question. All right, great. Yes.
Thank you. The future of gaming excites me. I want to hear what maybe if you do have a favorite game, I'd love to hear it too. But what excites you about these future industries, Web3, blockchain, and their implementations on gaming? And if you are currently working any of those processes? I know microtransactions, NFTs, kind of you're touching back on those things that are tangible. So if you guys have any insight on that, I'd love to hear it.
That is a great question. I'm excited for the future of games as well. I think the elephant in the room is artificial intelligence. Like, as far as the impact, I don't think we quite grasp like how like the tectonic shift that it has happened, but we haven't really seen it just yet. So for instance, like how that's going to help game developers specifically, like I saw this screenshot one time where somebody broke down an Ubisoft game or Ubisoft, however you want to say it. And they were like, okay, this asset, this cost $40,000. This asset right here, this was $100,000. This character model, this was $500,000. So, and that's like the time that's been spent in there. As far as like artificial intelligence goes, you have artists that can work with that. And for instance, like you could put, like you have someone who needs to make a building, an artist that goes in there, and it could take them, a week or something like that to get all the details right. Or they could work with an artificial intelligence program and fine-tune 1,000 different versions of it, or 1,000,000 different versions. So I think it's going to help out indie developers quite a bit too. Like it's gonna shorten the production time. I mean, the other thing is you do take the human element out a bit there, but that's my 2 cents. So, anyways, does anybody have? There you go.
So I totally agree with that. I actually had ChatGPT write a sad love song and give me the chords to it on the guitar, and also spit out the harmonica notes that I had to play the other night, just for fun, just to see if it would do it. And I was like, this is awesome. I don't have a harmonica. And I also then afterwards was like, hey, print me out the sheet music for a flugelhorn, because those are the 3 instruments I play. So I think that yes, that's crazy just how much is going to be shifting. Your question, I don't know a lot about games. I learned a little bit at the conferences that I've gone to, with the Peach Belt Conference and then the high schoolers there playing during those conferences. I've played Rocket League like twice, just because I have a bunch of guy friends and they were all sitting around like playing it. So I'm not very good at stuff like that. Just to admit, coordination's not my thing. My favorite kind of games are like Dominion. I'm more like hands-on, tangible, like we were talking about, which to me is, because I'm not a risk taker. I know, crazy. I know, right? Because I'm not a risk taker, I do like those tangible things. It's hard for me to think about a service, and which is why services are so much harder to sell than goods. But I want something I can physically take home. So I'm more of a board gamer, Ticket to Ride, Dominion kind of girl. Yeah, please. I don't even know what that means, but let's do it. I'm always down for a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, the future of games. I mean, AI is going to be a big one. I mean, from a marketing perspective, we're already invested in AI to do a whole bunch of stuff, from like data analytics to helping people find influencers and press and all kinds of stuff. I don't think Web3 technology has much of a future in gaming. I don't think it's grounded in anything that's not necessarily real, but even achievable. Especially because if you think about blockchain as a technology, the whole selling point is like, well, everybody's on the chain and everything's unique, but that doesn't work when you've got multiple different ones. Like the only way that works is everyone's on the same system, and that's never going to be the case. And so I think the technology is flawed. And if you think about it from a Web3 point of view, I mean, what games have pulled it off? What game has pulled it off yet? Like barely. Most of the games that you've heard about haven't even come out yet, and not anywhere near a playable stage. And some of them, I don't think, to be honest, will ever be. I think a lot of the developers will cut and run with the money. I think AI has got a big future. Web3 not so much. And then really, I mean, the tech of the new Unreal Engine and stuff like that, like the improvements that they're making stage on stage, like it's going to make games get to the point where not only are they easier to develop, but indie developers and smaller studios will have access to bigger tools to be able to pull off more impressive feats with less resources. I don't think AI, for example, is going to be I don't think it's going to replace humans as much as people are fearful of. I think it's just going to be a tool to empower people to do more with less, especially for indies, because they'll be able to be a jack of all trades, but have a little bit of help doing it, I guess.
Yeah, I love that fact that you touched on. It's a cool idea, NFTs, but like, for example, Blizzard games are on different engines. Like, yeah, cool, I got a jacket, but where can I use that jacket? I can just use it in one game. I was invited as an influencer to try out Big Time, which is the drops in that game are NFTs. You also get a space in the game that you can utilize and then create, but it's just, what are they going to do with that? So there is a game that's trying to do it, but it's like, I don't foresee anything coming of it right now. Maybe in the future as they produce more games, because like, where are you going to use that NFT? Where does it go next? Yeah, right. So it's curious. I'm curious. I'm watching it, but I don't know what's going to happen to it right now. But yeah, it's like, right. It's like one space right now. You can't really utilize it anywhere else, because it isn't that the point of an NFT. And everything we're talking about just makes me think of graphics cards right now. I'm just stuck on NVIDIA and just like the Ada Lovelace architecture and the tensor cores and the deep dive sampling stuff. So DLSS3, which is like AI being utilized to just like create a better performance and game experience for you. And just the fact that AI we shouldn't be scared of it. We're utilizing it, and we're able to formulate more answers quickly and go through experiences using the GPUs, experiments with the GPUs, like creating environments and getting answers faster, which I think is really cool when it comes to AI.
I think it'll help indies a lot also, because there's a lot of niches that they don't have access to, maybe music or other assets that it can help build and for very cheap to no money. And I think we're going to see that more with assets and smaller things, because sometimes there's legal issues why you can't use a specific item and you would have to pay a lot for it. But if you look at imagery, you could use AI for that, and you can get something that is similar, but legally you're allowed to use it, and it's enough that somebody can understand and get around those issues.
If you run it through twice, I'm learning this as a professor and having to grade essays. if you run it through ChatGPT twice, and then for the third time, it makes it to where it doesn't pick up that it was created by ChatGPT. So I was informed of that whenever I was grading essays at the end of the semester by one of my students. So I learned that it's easy to get close to, but not plagiarizing. But yeah, I had a student try and sell his new product had to do with NFTs, and I swear it was the longest presentation ever because I had so many questions. I didn't understand it at all, but so I did a lot of research on that afterwards.
I think you're onto something, actually. Dr. Ryan Lynch, he's one of our department heads here at CSU. He talked about, like, as far as what he sees as the future is, like, artisan-based game development. So, like, what he means by that is, like, it's guaranteed that no artificial intelligence was used in the making of the game. So so he sees that as like a new market that's going to exist in the future. So he's very, very smart. So I would say that, yeah, watch out for that market existing in the future. So, yeah. Exactly. Oh, Andrew, yeah, you wanted to.
And of course, I've been spending 30 years designing AI for games, so suddenly that gets useless. That's right. So I don't know if anyone here can answer this question, but in games, we make a color palette very early in the process. And usually when we think of color theory, we're thinking of things like hue and saturation and lightness. What should we be thinking of for branding, for marketing, for the experience? Anyone on the panel up for taking that question? Thank you, Dr. Jones. When she's not rescuing relics from the jungle.
Yes. I know that's always been people have always made fun. Dr. Jones, from the movie, and I'm like, no, just yeah. One big thing that I deal a lot with is physiological responses to marketing materials. So I run a lot of tests and data on eye tracking, galvanic skin response to measure the secretion of a chemical in your skin that measures arousal, EEG. So I look a lot at brain waves and stuff like that. And one thing that we've really been able to kind of mesh out and kind of find for these big companies, like, we'll have St. Jude come to us or, Service Master, and they'll say, hey, what are we doing wrong? And we'll, hook people up to all these things, and we'll change a color. We'll change where the logo is located. So just being very aware of the placement. We call them areas of interest in this research, and where the certain brands are. Now, if you're developing a color palette early on and you don't know the psychology of color, you're in big trouble. Because the way in which emotions can be evoked, they say that most serial killers, their rooms were red. And red evokes like passion, like it could be very angry or very intense. So if you have your room painted red, you might want to rethink that. But so just thinking about what emotion you're trying to evoke in that game. Is it more of a lighthearted game? Is it more of an intense, like I want people drawn in and kind of angry at their opponents, or creating more competition? So I would highly recommend doing some research in development of the psychology of color. And I think y'all are probably pretty familiar with that as well. The psychology of placement of certain objects, the psychology of shapes, the psychology of music. Those are things that a lot of people don't think about with game development or development of anything. I'm not a game developer. I wish I was that smart. But just the development of anything is how and going back to exactly what I first said, how human beings are going to respond to it. Am I going to respond to something better if I'm looking at the brand versus the color or artwork or whatever I've created here, and making sure that you are placing that brand in the important places. I can't tell you how many ads that have spent millions and millions of dollars running, where I don't know if you remember Trident with the ninja. And if you look at the eye tracking data on that, they stared right at the ninja's eyes. They didn't look at the Trident logo at all. I think during this 10-second ad, you may have had 2 people divert to the brand name, and it was not long enough to even be able to recollect or be able to even do a repeat of that brand. So making sure you are designing things creatively in that matter, and making sure that you take credit for it. Don't not put your brand on something, because that's how you grow. That's how people know your company's name. That's how people know who you are. I mean, you should look at that as yourself. I tell my students that all the time. You are your own personal brand. And with networking and stuff like that, and you said finding influencers that have specialties, that's all. You need to brand yourself in a certain way. So someone in the future comes to you and they say, hey, you're the specialist in this. I want you to be an influencer for me, or however that works, because you're good at that. So knowing your specialty and how to brand yourself is really important too.
Yeah. Yeah, you covered a lot there.
Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, Vicarious is red. That's why I chose red, because I wanted passion and passion and serial killer vibes, you know. So.
Hey, perfect color palette.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, one thing I'll tell you one story. So this is why color matters, right? So years and years ago, before I got into games, I worked. Before I was a journalist, even so, going like nearly 20 years back. I worked for a realtor company, and my job was to basically do a rebrand for them. And so I went around the town and noticed that all of the we call them estate agents in England. The estate agents were all green. All their house sizes and all their storefronts were all green, because everybody recognized that green was like a welcoming, nice color, that people were attracted to green signs and stuff like that. So I made their signs black and red to be different, and then they put two of them out of business out of that. And so, like, looking at other games and what colors they're going for, and then also considering like themes as well. So sci-fi, like if you think of like Mass Effect, they go for like purples, blues, grays, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, you covered pretty much the majority of what I was going to say, so there you go.
I know nothing, but I agree with the research.
Yeah, I gotta just agree with them too.
We do that a lot with logos.
Thank you guys. Did anybody want to? Oh yeah, our logo is black and red. So, oh yeah, it's like a pirate flag. So, I guess like, does anybody want to plug anything? It's the end of the show. So.
Becca Jones on LinkedIn. So if you want to network and connect. Okay.
Yeah, go to vicariouspr.com if you want marketing for your game. Well, for V Publishing, we've got Mirthwood, so we announced. Yeah, I say it with an F with my accent, Mirthwood. There you go. But yeah.
Hi, I'm Tiger Lily. My favorite game's Diablo. I also really like old games like Champions of Norath. But my plug is, so right now my goal is just to kind of create a creator team for Ants Online, and we stream on twitch.tv/Ants Online, Atlanta Network Technologies Online. And we have like a gap in my schedule, and my goal is to actually create like an indie segment, because I used to do that for DreamHack. I used to like interview developers and like get them to share their passions when it came to their games and stuff, and so like I really want to cultivate and bring that back. And so if I get enough people interested in that, maybe I can create a plan and propose it to my team at Ants Online and like make it a reality. So that's my goal, and hopefully by the end of the year or 2024. Technology. So Ants, sure.
Our studio, Pirate Pixel Game Studio, and all of our socials you can find on our website, piratepixelgamestudio.com. And I hope that you'll check us out, and we'll be able to have a fun game for you guys pretty soon that we can announce.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you guys. Ditto what he said.